Since 2000, Iran's relationship with the U.S. has undergone significant transformation. Initial tactical cooperation has given way to deep mistrust and escalating tensions. Economic sanctions have been a key feature of this evolving relationship. Brief periods of diplomatic engagement have punctuated the overall trend of confrontation. Currently, Iran's foreign policy is characterized by renewed confrontation with the U.S. This shift has contributed to Iran's alignment with Russia and China on the global stage. Following the 9/11 attacks, Iran engaged in cooperative efforts with the United States. This collaboration was primarily aimed at addressing the threats posed by the Taliban and al-Qaeda. Iran provided intelligence support to the U.S. to aid the bond process in Afghanistan. This cooperation occurred roughly between the years 2000 and 2008. In 2002, President George W. Bush publicly identified Iran as part of an axis of evil. This designation marked a shift towards open confrontation with Iran. The axis of evil label signaled a departure from potential strategic reconciliation. It indicated a more adversarial stance in U.S. foreign policy towards Iran. The phrase framed Iran within a group of nations perceived as threats to global security. This categorization had significant implications for diplomatic relations and international perceptions of Iran. In the early 2000s, the existence of Iranian nuclear facilities became public. These revelations prompted investigations by the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA. The findings of these investigations raised international concerns regarding the nature of Iran's nuclear program. In response to these concerns, the United Nations imposed sanctions on Iran. The United States also implemented its own set of sanctions against Iran. The U.S. invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq heightened Iran's perception of external threats. In response, Iran intensified its support and utilization of militia groups. This strategy was notably implemented in Iraq and Lebanon. Iran's actions reflect a broader strategy to exert regional influence and counter perceived adversaries. In 2010, the Comprehensive Iran Sanctions, Accountability, and Divestment Act, CSIDA, was enacted. CSIDA broadened the scope of penalties targeting Iran. The expansion focused on Iran's energy sector. Additional penalties were applied to Iran's banking and shipping industries. The US, EU, and UN implemented coordinated sanctions against Iran. These sanctions aimed to curtail Iran's nuclear program. In response, Iran focused on strengthening its alliances. Key allies included Syria, providing strategic depth in the region. Iran also fostered closer ties with Hezbollah, a significant non-state actor. Additionally, Iran deepened its relationships with Iraqi Shia militias, expanding its regional influence. The Joint Plan of Action, JPA, was initiated in 2013 to 2014. The JPA aimed to temporarily halt key aspects of Iran's nuclear program. This freeze was intended as a preliminary step. The JPA's primary goal was to establish a foundation for broader negotiations. These negotiations were aimed at reaching a comprehensive agreement regarding Iran's nuclear activities. The JPA served as a diplomatic pathway towards a more permanent resolution. In 2015, a significant international agreement was reached regarding Iran's nuclear program. Iran and the P5+1 nations finalized the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA. The JCPOA placed limitations on Iran's uranium enrichment levels. These limitations were implemented in exchange for the easing of economic sanctions against Iran. The agreement aimed to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons while allowing peaceful nuclear energy use. The JCPOA reached implementation day in January 2016. Iran scaled back its nuclear program under IAEA supervision. This reduction in nuclear activities was a key condition of the agreement. In return, Iran received economic sanctions relief. In 2018, the Trump administration made a significant policy shift regarding the JCPOA. The administration decided to withdraw the United States from the JCPOA agreement. Following the withdrawal, the U.S. government reimposed sanctions on Iran. These sanctions specifically targeted Iran's oil exports, a critical sector of its economy. Sanctions were also applied to Iran's banking system, restricting its access to international finance. Additionally, sanctions were imposed on senior Iranian officials as part of the broader policy. Iran responded by gradually exceeding the JCPOA limits. Enrichment levels were increased beyond the agreed thresholds. Advanced centrifuges were introduced to accelerate the enrichment process. These actions marked a departure from the original terms of the JCPOA agreement. The years 2019 to 2020 saw increased tensions in the Gulf region. Tanker attacks in the Gulf were a key factor in escalating the conflict. The downing of a U.S. drone further heightened tensions. Limited kinetic responses were initiated as a result of these events. These actions collectively raised the risk of a direct military conflict. In January 2020, a significant military event unfolded in Baghdad, Iraq. A U.S. drone strike resulted in the death of Qasem Soleimani. Qasem Soleimani was a key figure in Iranian military and political strategy. In response, Iran launched missile strikes targeting U.S. forces stationed in Iraq. These events marked a period of heightened tension between the U.S. and Iran. Since 2021, efforts have been underway to restore the JCPOA. These efforts have faced significant obstacles and have largely stalled. Key factors contributing to the stall include distrust between parties. Iranian nuclear advancements and shifting regional dynamics have further complicated restoration attempts. Iran is strengthening its relationships with Russia and China. This involves increased cooperation in both defense and economic sectors. The three countries are forming a stronger alliance. This alliance is based on shared interests. The alliance impacts global geopolitics. Iran-aligned groups have initiated attacks on various targets. These targets include Israel, U.S. forces, and international shipping lanes. These attacks have contributed to escalating regional tensions. The situation has led to direct confrontations between the U.S. and Iran. These confrontations are occurring within the context of wider regional crises. The period of heightened activity is observed between 2023 and 2025. In 2025, the United States initiated direct military strikes. The strikes targeted major facilities located within Iran. This action represents a significant escalation of tensions. It marks a historic moment in U.S.-Iran relations. The strikes signify a departure from previous strategies. This event has far-reaching geopolitical implications. Historically, U.S. military actions involving Iran primarily occurred outside Iranian territory. Recent events indicate a shift in this pattern. There has been an increase in direct strikes within Iran's borders. This represents a notable change in the geographical scope of U.S. military engagement with Iran. This shift towards direct strikes on Iranian soil marks a significant escalation in tensions. In 2025, the U.S. initiated direct military strikes against facilities within Iran. These strikes mark a significant escalation in U.S.-Iran relations. This event is reported as the first instance of such direct action since the 1979 Iranian Revolution. The strikes represent a departure from previous U.S. policy toward Iran. Iran's geographical location provides a significant strategic advantage. A large population contributes to Iran's potential workforce and military strength. Substantial oil and gas reserves provide economic leverage and energy independence. Advanced missile and drone forces enhance Iran's military capabilities. A well-established regional network of partners extends Iran's influence. These factors collectively contribute to Iran's regional power and strategic depth. Iran's economy is significantly hampered by mismanagement. The country's heavy reliance on hydrocarbon exports makes it vulnerable to price fluctuations. Economic sanctions imposed by international entities further strain Iran's financial stability. Internal political factionalism creates instability and hinders effective policy implementation. These factors collectively contribute to Iran's overall economic and political vulnerability. Iran has opportunities to capitalize on regional conflicts to enhance its influence. Forming strategic partnerships with Russia and China presents another avenue for Iran. These partnerships could provide economic and political support. Economic normalization is a potential opportunity for Iran. Achieving this is contingent upon managing nuclear issues effectively. Successful management of nuclear issues could unlock economic benefits and reduce international pressure. Iran is subject to economic sanctions imposed by the U.S. and its allies. The nation faces potential cyber and kinetic military actions. There is a significant risk of regional conflict involving Iran. Iran experiences internal instability and domestic unrest. Proliferation risks are associated with Iran's nuclear program. Iran's primary mission is the preservation of the Islamic Republic. A key goal is to project Iranian influence across the region. Ensuring strategic depth is another critical objective for Iran. Maintaining nuclear latency is also a significant part of Iran's strategic aims. Iran's primary strategic goal is to ensure the survival of its current regime. This survival strategy focuses on preventing both internal overthrow and external regime change. The regime prioritizes maintaining its power and authority within Iran. It also aims to deter foreign powers from imposing a new political system. These dual objectives shape Iran's domestic and foreign policies. Iran's strategic objective is to establish regional primacy. This involves seeking to exert dominant influence across key Middle Eastern countries. The geographical scope of this influence extends from Iraq to Lebanon. It also encompasses the Gulf region. This strategy aims to position Iran as a central power broker in the Middle East. The pursuit of regional primacy is a key driver of Iran's foreign policy. Iran is actively developing a range of military capabilities. These capabilities include advanced missile systems. The development of drone technology is also a key component. Iran is also pursuing a nuclear program. The stated purpose of these programs is deterrence. Specifically, Iran aims to deter potential attacks from the US and Israel. Iran has demonstrated economic resilience despite facing international sanctions. A key strategy involves circumventing sanctions through gray market exports. These exports operate outside of traditional regulated channels. Partnerships with Russia and China are crucial for maintaining economic activity. These alliances provide Iran with alternative markets and trade routes. Iran employs an asymmetric regional network strategy. This strategy involves supporting non-state partners. The goal is to expand Iran's regional influence. This network also aims to impose costs on adversaries. Iran's nuclear program serves a dual purpose in its foreign policy. It acts as a deterrent, discouraging potential adversaries from aggression. The program also provides leverage in international negotiations. Iran utilizes its nuclear capabilities as a bargaining chip in diplomatic discussions. Great power hedging involves a nation strategically aligning with other powerful countries. This alignment aims to mitigate the impact of sanctions imposed by a dominant power, such as the US. Iran, for example, is strengthening its relationships with Russia and China. This is a calculated effort to diversify its international partnerships. The goal is to reduce its vulnerability to US economic pressure and sanctions. Calibrated escalation is a strategic approach employed to exert pressure. Iran utilizes this strategy through incremental breaches of nuclear agreements. It also involves orchestrating episodic attacks via its network of partners. The primary goal is to gradually increase bargaining leverage in negotiations. These actions are carefully measured to avoid all-out conflict while maximizing influence. Iran employs lawfare as a diplomatic strategy. A key tactic involves framing US sanctions as violations of international law. This portrayal aims to undermine the legitimacy of US sanctions on the global stage. International law is thus leveraged to advance Iran's diplomatic objectives. Iran actively employs information operations as a strategic tool. A core objective is shaping narratives that highlight resistance to US hegemony. These narratives often frame the US as an oppressive force. This framing is used to garner support for Iran's geopolitical objectives. Such information operations aim to influence public opinion both domestically and internationally. Iran operates under an authoritarian political system. Within this system, there is competition between hardliners and pragmatists. Despite this competition, the supreme leader holds the ultimate authority. This concentration of power defines the structure of Iranian governance. Confrontation with the US has geopolitical ramifications. This confrontation can inadvertently strengthen internal security entities. Sanctions imposed by the US often exacerbate this effect. Security actors may gain increased influence and resources. This empowerment can shift the internal political dynamics. This shift is particularly notable in sanctioned countries. Economic sanctions have significantly restricted Iran's economic expansion. These sanctions have also curtailed investment opportunities within the country. Iran's ability to participate in global markets has been severely hampered. These constraints collectively hinder Iran's overall economic development. A nation's heavy reliance on oil exports makes it highly susceptible to economic sanctions. Sanctions can severely restrict a country's ability to sell oil on the global market. This restriction leads to a significant reduction in revenue. Reduced revenue can destabilize the national economy. Diversifying the economy is crucial to mitigate the impact of sanctions. A young population often leads to increased demand for employment opportunities. This demographic can also drive a greater desire for political engagement and representation. Societal pressures may arise for expanded social freedoms and individual rights. These combined factors can significantly influence social and political landscapes. Many citizens prioritize a return to normalcy and seek relief from isolation. This desire often leads to a preference for pragmatic solutions over strict adherence to ideology. Pragmatism focuses on practical outcomes and tangible benefits for the majority. Ideology, in contrast, emphasizes principles and doctrines, which may not always align with immediate needs. Iran demonstrates a disparity in technological advancement across different sectors. The nation experiences a relative lag in civilian technologies compared to global standards. This lag affects areas crucial for economic diversification and citizen well-being. Conversely, Iran has achieved notable progress in military-related technologies. Specifically, advancements are evident in missile technology and cyber warfare capabilities. Nuclear enrichment technologies enhance a nation's capacity to produce nuclear materials. This enhanced capacity can translate into increased bargaining power on the international stage. However, the pursuit and development of nuclear capabilities often trigger international concerns. These concerns can lead to the imposition of sanctions by other nations or international bodies. Therefore, nuclear enrichment presents a dual-edged effect: increased power, but also the risk of economic and political penalties. Environmental factors significantly contribute to domestic fragility. Water scarcity creates stress on resources and populations. Pollution degrades environmental quality and public health. Climate stress exacerbates existing vulnerabilities. These environmental issues can undermine social and economic stability. Collectively, they increase the risk of domestic instability and conflict. The Strait of Hormuz is a critical strategic choke point. Control of this strait provides significant leverage in global energy markets. Iran's geographical position allows it to potentially control passage through the strait. This control impacts the flow of oil and gas from the Persian Gulf. Disruptions in this area can lead to price volatility and supply concerns worldwide. Therefore, the Strait of Hormuz remains a key factor in international relations and energy security. The legal framework governing interactions with Iran is defined by a combination of U.S. measures. This framework also includes measures from the United Nations. European Union regulations further shape the legal landscape. Any state interacting with Iran must navigate this complex web of legal measures. Iran is a signatory to the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, NPT. The NPT is an international treaty to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and weapons technology. The treaty promotes cooperation in the peaceful uses of nuclear energy. It also furthers the goal of achieving nuclear disarmament. As a party to the NPT, Iran has specific obligations regarding its nuclear program. These obligations include safeguards and inspections by the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA. Iran is currently navigating a complex geopolitical landscape. A significant aspect of this landscape is the intense pressure exerted by the United States. Iran is also facing ongoing confrontations and tensions with Israel. To counter these pressures, Iran increasingly relies on support from Russia. China is another key partner for Iran, providing economic and diplomatic support. Recent events indicate a direct confrontation between the U.S. and Iran-aligned groups. Direct U.S. military strikes have been initiated. Attacks by groups aligned with Iran have increased in frequency and intensity. These actions mark a significant deterioration in the relationship. The situation has evolved into a state of open confrontation. This escalation raises concerns about regional stability and potential for further conflict. The near-term outlook suggests an ongoing cycle of reciprocal actions between the U.S. and its allies. This dynamic is mirrored by Iran and its affiliated proxy groups in the region. The phrase tit for tat indicates a pattern of retaliatory measures. Each action by one side is expected to be met with a corresponding response from the other. This projection highlights a period of continued instability and potential escalation in the region. Medium-term projections suggest Iran will continue its nuclear program advancements. These advancements are expected to fall short of outright nuclear weaponization. The focus remains on developing nuclear capabilities, without crossing the threshold of declared weapons production. This strategy allows Iran to enhance its strategic position. However, it avoids triggering immediate international military intervention. Military actions can lead to increased regional instability. Escalation of conflicts poses a risk of wider international involvement. Such actions may result in further isolation of Iran on the global stage. Increased instability can destabilize neighboring countries. Isolation can impact Iran's economic and diplomatic relations. The US and its allies are actively engaged in applying pressure. This pressure is exerted through the implementation of sanctions. Sanctions are economic measures designed to influence policy. Military deterrence serves as another tool to maintain stability. Miscalculation can lead to direct military conflict. Such conflicts carry the risk of nuclear proliferation. Escalation may result in regional war. These risks highlight the need for careful decision-making. Following the 9/11 attacks, Iran engaged in tactical cooperation with the United States. This cooperation primarily involved intelligence sharing. The shared intelligence was specifically targeted against the Taliban. This collaboration was a focused effort in response to a specific threat. The cooperation highlights a specific instance of alignment between the two nations' interests. The Axis of Evil speech was delivered in 2002. The speech marked a shift in U.S. foreign policy. The policy shifted towards public confrontation. Iran became a focal point of this confrontational approach. The speech signaled a more assertive U.S. stance towards Iran. IAEA investigations focused on Iranian nuclear facilities. These investigations aimed to verify the peaceful nature of Iran's nuclear activities. Findings from the IAEA led to increased international scrutiny. Growing concerns arose regarding potential violations of nuclear agreements. These concerns centered on the possibility of undeclared nuclear activities. Consequently, international sanctions were imposed to address these concerns. The U.S. invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq heightened Iran's sense of vulnerability. These military actions were perceived as potential encirclement. Iran viewed the U.S. presence in neighboring countries as a direct threat. This perception intensified Iran's security concerns. The perceived threat influenced Iran's foreign policy and military strategy. CSADA, enacted in 2010, broadened the scope of sanctions against Iran. The sanctions targeted key sectors of the Iranian economy. These sectors included Iran's energy industry. Sanctions were also imposed on Iran's banking sector. The shipping sector was additionally affected by these expanded sanctions. The US, European Union, and United Nations coordinated efforts. These efforts involved imposing economic sanctions on Iran. The primary goal was to pressure Iran. The pressure aimed to force Iran to curtail its nuclear program. The sanctions were designed to limit Iran's nuclear activities. This coordination sought to ensure international compliance and effectiveness. The Joint Plan of Action, JPA, was established in 2013 to 2014. The JPA focused on Iran's nuclear program. The JPA's primary effect was to freeze specific elements of Iran's nuclear activities. This freeze aimed to prevent further advancement of Iran's nuclear capabilities during the period. The JPA served as an interim agreement while broader negotiations took place. The JCPOA was established in 2015 as an international agreement. The agreement placed restrictions on Iran's uranium enrichment activities. These limitations were designed to prevent the development of nuclear weapons. In return for these restrictions, Iran was offered relief from economic sanctions. The JCPOA aimed to ensure that Iran's nuclear program remained peaceful. The JCPOA reached its implementation day in January 2016. This marked a significant phase in the agreement. Iran began to roll back its nuclear program as part of the JCPOA. This rollback was a key condition for the agreement's implementation. The implementation aimed to ensure Iran's compliance with the JCPOA terms. In 2018, the United States formally withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA. This withdrawal signified a shift in U.S. foreign policy regarding the Iran nuclear agreement. Following the withdrawal, the U.S. reimposed economic sanctions on Iran. These sanctions specifically targeted Iran's oil exports, a critical sector of its economy. Iran initially adhered to the JCPOA's limitations on its nuclear program. The U.S. withdrawal from the JCPOA marked a turning point. Following the U.S. withdrawal, sanctions were reimposed on Iran. In response to these sanctions, Iran began to gradually exceed the JCPOA limits. These breaches included exceeding limits on uranium enrichment levels. The breaches also included increasing the stockpile of enriched uranium. Tanker attacks in the Gulf heightened geopolitical tensions. These attacks disrupted maritime traffic and energy supplies. The downing of a U.S. drone further escalated the situation. This incident increased military posturing in the region. These events collectively raised the risk of direct conflict. The potential for miscalculation and escalation became significant. A U.S. drone strike resulted in the death of Qasem Soleimani. Qasem Soleimani was a major general in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Soleimani was considered the second most powerful person in Iran. The U.S. drone strike was ordered by then-President Donald Trump. In response, Iran launched missile strikes targeting U.S. forces. The missile strikes marked a significant escalation in tensions between the U.S. and Iran. Efforts to revive the JCPOA are currently facing significant obstacles. A key factor is the mutual distrust between involved parties. This distrust complicates negotiations and agreement on terms. Iranian nuclear advancements further impede progress toward restoration. Iran is strengthening its relationships with Russia and China. This alignment involves increased defense cooperation between the nations. Economic cooperation is also a key component of this strategic shift. These partnerships reflect a change in Iran's geopolitical orientation. Iran-aligned groups have launched attacks in the Middle East. These attacks have targeted Israel. U.S. forces have also been a target of these groups. Shipping in the Middle East has been attacked by Iran-aligned groups. In 2025, the United States initiated direct military strikes. These strikes targeted major facilities within Iran. The U.S. military actions represent a significant escalation of conflict. The specific nature and impact of these strikes require further analysis. Historically, U.S. military actions targeting Iran were primarily conducted outside Iranian territory. This approach aimed to minimize direct conflict within Iran's borders. However, recent events indicate a shift in this pattern. There has been an increase in military activities occurring inside Iran. This change marks a notable departure from previous U.S. military strategy. Iran's geopolitical significance is enhanced by its strategic geographic location. The nation is characterized by a substantial population, contributing to its regional influence. Iran holds considerable reserves of both oil and natural gas. These resources are vital for both domestic consumption and international export. The combination of geography, population, and resources gives Iran a unique position. This position impacts regional dynamics in global energy markets. Iran's economy is significantly affected by chronic mismanagement. The country's economic structure is highly dependent on hydrocarbon exports. This dependence makes the economy vulnerable to fluctuations in global oil prices. Economic diversification is needed to reduce reliance on oil revenues. Iran possesses geopolitical opportunities arising from regional conflicts. These conflicts can be strategically leveraged to expand influence. Partnerships with Russia offer avenues for economic and military cooperation. Collaboration with China presents opportunities for investment and infrastructure development. Iran is currently navigating a complex geopolitical landscape. One significant challenge is the imposition of sanctions by the U.S. and its allies. These sanctions target various sectors of the Iranian economy. The aim of the sanctions is to limit Iran's economic capabilities. Another critical concern for Iran is the potential for regional conflict. This risk of war adds further instability to the nation's situation. Iran's primary goal is the preservation of its Islamic Republic system. This involves maintaining its current political and religious structure. A key component of Iran's strategy is projecting influence in the region. This regional influence is pursued through various political and economic means. Iran aims to be a dominant force in Middle Eastern affairs. Iran's primary objective is to maintain its current political system. A key focus is preventing internal uprisings that could destabilize the government. Another critical goal is to deter foreign powers from imposing regime change. These efforts are aimed at ensuring the long-term survival of the existing leadership. The preservation strategy encompasses both domestic and international security measures. Iran is actively pursuing a strategy to establish significant influence in key Middle Eastern countries. This strategy focuses on expanding its reach from Iraq to Lebanon. The Gulf region is also a target for Iranian influence. Iran's objective is to become a dominant regional power. This pursuit involves various political economic, and strategic initiatives. Iran is actively developing a range of military capabilities. These capabilities include missile technology and drone development. Iran also maintains a nuclear program. The stated purpose of these programs is to deter potential attacks against Iran. Iran employs gray market exports to bypass international sanctions. These exports operate outside of officially sanctioned trade channel. Partnerships with various entities facilitate these gray market activities. This allows Iran to maintain economic activity despite restrictions. Iran provides support to non-state actors. This support aims to extend Iran's regional influence. Supporting non-state partners allows Iran to project power beyond its borders. Iran also uses these partnerships to impose costs on its adversaries. By proxy, Iran can challenge opponents without direct military confrontation. Iran's nuclear program serves a dual purpose in its foreign policy. It acts as a deterrent, discouraging potential adversaries. The program also provides leverage in international negotiations. This strategic approach aims to enhance Iran's regional influence and security. Iran is actively reinforcing its relationships with Russia and China. This strategic move is designed to counter the impact of U.S. sanctions. Strengthening ties aims to diversify Iran's economic and political partnerships. The alliances provide alternative avenues for trade and international cooperation. Ultimately, this strategy seeks to diminish the effectiveness of U.S. sanctions on Iran. Iran employs a strategy of gradual nuclear breaches. These breaches incrementally violate existing nuclear agreements. Iran also uses episodic attacks as part of its strategy. The combination of breaches and attacks aims to increase bargaining leverage. This leverage is intended for use in negotiations with other nations. Iran strategically employs international law. This is done to delegitimize U.S. sanctions. Iran seeks to portray the sanctions as unlawful. This undermines the perceived legitimacy of the sanctions. International law is used as a tool for this purpose. The goal is to gain international support against the sanctions. Iran's narratives often center on resistance. A key theme is opposition to U.S. hegemony. This resistance is portrayed as a defense of sovereignty. Another central element is the defense of Palestinians. This support is framed as a moral imperative. These narratives shape Iran's regional and global posture. Iran operates under an authoritarian political system. This system is characterized by internal competition. Competing factions include hardliners. Pragmatists also form a significant faction. These groups vie for influence within the government. The interplay between these factions shapes policy decisions. Tensions with the U.S. have led to a strengthening of security forces within Iran. This empowerment is a consequence of the need to address external threats and maintain internal stability. The security apparatus gains influence and resources in response to perceived U.S. aggression. Heightened security measures and increased authority are justified by the ongoing confrontation. This dynamic reshapes the internal power balance, favoring those responsible for national security. Sanctions have significantly restricted Iran's economic growth. These restrictions have led to a decrease in overall economic activity. Investment in key sectors of the Iranian economy has also been hampered. Reduced investment further constrains potential growth and development. Sanctions limit Iran's access to global markets for trade and finance. This isolation impacts Iran's ability to participate in the global economy. Iran's economy is significantly dependent on oil exports as a primary source of revenue. International sanctions restrict Iran's ability to export oil. Reduced oil exports lead to a decrease in Iran's foreign exchange earnings. This decrease impacts the government's budget and its ability to finance various sectors. Sanctions intensify the economic challenges faced by Iran due to its reliance on oil. The effect of sanctions is magnified by the lack of diversification in Iran's export economy. Iran is experiencing a demographic trend characterized by a large youth population. This demographic structure creates significant pressure on the labor market. The high number of young people increases the demand for employment opportunities. Limited job availability can lead to unemployment and economic frustration among the youth. Furthermore, the young population often expresses a desire for greater social freedom. This demand for social change can create tension within the existing social and political structures. Many Iranian citizens yearn for a sense of normalcy in their daily lives. A significant desire is to alleviate feelings of isolation. Citizens also seek relief from the oppressive conditions they face. These aspirations reflect a deep-seated need for improved living conditions. The pursuit of normalcy, reduced isolation, and freedom from repression are key concerns. Iran's technological development is uneven across different sectors. It demonstrates a relative lack of advancement in civilian technologies. However, Iran has achieved significant progress in military capabilities. This includes notable strides in missile technology and cyber warfare capabilities. Enrichment technologies enhance a nation's resource processing capabilities. Iran's development in these technologies has notably progressed. This technological advancement directly impacts Iran's negotiation leverage. Greater technological capabilities increase bargaining power in international relations. The ability to enrich resources provides a stronger position in discussions. Therefore, enrichment technology development has increased Iran's bargaining power. Iran faces significant domestic challenges. Water scarcity is a critical issue affecting the country. Pollution further worsens environmental problems. Climate stress adds to the existing fragility. These environmental factors collectively contribute to domestic instability. Addressing these issues is crucial for Iran's long-term stability. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway of strategic importance. It connects the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. A significant percentage of the world's oil supply passes through this strait. Iran has territorial control over part of the Strait of Hormuz. This control gives Iran considerable influence over global energy markets. Iran's position allows it to potentially disrupt or control oil tanker traffic. A complex network of legal measures shapes interactions with Iran. These measures originate from both the U.S. and international bodies. The United Nations, UN, implements certain regulations. The European Union, EU, also contributes to this legal framework. These regulations collectively define the permissible scope of engagement with Iran. Understanding this legal landscape is crucial for any entity interacting with Iran. Iran is a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT. The NPT is an international treaty aimed at preventing the spread of nuclear weapons. The treaty also promotes cooperation in the peaceful uses of nuclear energy. As a party to the NPT, Iran is committed to not developing nuclear weapons. Iran is currently navigating a complex geopolitical landscape. A significant factor is the intense pressure exerted by the United States. This pressure impacts Iran's international relations and economic stability. Consequently, Iran is increasingly dependent on Russia. Iran is also becoming more reliant on China for economic and political support. This reliance shapes Iran's foreign policy and strategic alliances. Direct military strikes by the U.S. have occurred on Iranian territory. These strikes represent a significant escalation in tensions. The relationship between the two countries has shifted into a state of open confrontation. This confrontation marks a departure from previous, more indirect conflicts. The situation now involves direct military actions, signaling a more overt and hostile dynamic. The U.S. and its allies are engaged in ongoing tit-for-tat actions. Iran and its proxies are also participating in reciprocal actions. These actions are expected to continue. This escalation poses a risk to regional stability. The conflict may intensify if de-escalation measures are not implemented. Iran is expected to persist in its nuclear program development. This advancement will likely stop short of explicit weaponization. The strategy suggests a pursuit of nuclear capabilities without crossing the threshold of declared weapons production. This approach allows Iran to enhance its strategic position. It also avoids triggering immediate international military responses. The situation remains a critical point of observation for global security. Current global dynamics are likely to increase regional instability. This instability may manifest through various channels. These channels include economic downturns and political tensions. Such instability can lead to humanitarian crises. These crises can further destabilize neighboring regions. The U.S. and its allies are maintaining pressure on Iran. This pressure is exerted through economic sanctions. Sanctions aim to limit Iran's economic activities. Deterrence measures are also employed to discourage certain actions by Iran. Miscalculations can escalate tensions between the U.S. and Iran. These miscalculations carry the risk of unintended consequences. Escalation could lead to direct military confrontation. Such a conflict would have significant global implications. Nuclear proliferation presents a significant risk in international relations. Tensions between the U.S. and Iran highlight this proliferation risk. These tensions could potentially escalate the development or acquisition of nuclear weapons. Such escalation would destabilize the region and increase global security concerns. In 2025, the U.S. military launched strikes against targets within Iran. This action represents a significant escalation in U.S.-Iran relations. The strikes mark a notable turning point in the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. The specific targets and rationale behind the strikes are key factors in understanding the event's implications. This event is considered a historic moment due to its potential long-term consequences. Iran maintains a network of regional partners. This network also includes proxy groups. Hezbollah is one of Iran's key regional partners. The Houthis also form part of this network. These relationships allow Iran to exert influence in the region. Iran faces internal political factionalism. These internal divisions can undermine the stability of the government. Legitimacy issues also pose a challenge to the Iranian regime. These issues can erode public trust and support for the government. A widespread desire for stability exists throughout the region. This desire is coupled with a strong aspiration for economic growth. The convergence of these desires creates a significant opportunity. This opportunity can be leveraged to foster positive change. Stability provides a foundation for sustainable economic development. Economic growth, in turn, reinforces regional stability. Iran faces competition from regional rivals. Saudi Arabia is a significant competitor to Iran. Turkey also presents competitive challenges to Iran. These rivalries pose a threat to Iran's regional influence. Iran employs a multi-layered strategy in its foreign policy. A key component of this strategy involves the potential development of nuclear capabilities. This potential is leveraged as a bargaining chip in international negotiations. The nuclear program serves as a point of leverage in discussions with global powers. Iran aims to achieve its strategic objectives through this complex approach. Iran employs a strategy known as calibrated escalation in its operational patterns. Calibrated escalation involves gradually increasing pressure or actions in a controlled manner. This approach is designed to achieve specific objectives without triggering a full-scale conflict. The strategy allows Iran to signal, resolve, and project power while managing risk. Each step in the escalation is carefully calculated to elicit a desired response. This method aims to influence the behavior of adversaries and gain leverage in negotiations. Iran faces demographic pressure due to its population structure. This demographic pressure increases the demand for jobs. The population also puts pressure on political participation. These factors pose challenges for Iran's economic and political systems. Sanctions regimes establish extensive legal frameworks. These frameworks impose numerous constraints on targeted entities. The constraints are designed to modify behavior or limit access to resources. Legal complexities arise from the intersection of various jurisdictions. Compliance requires careful navigation of these intricate regulations. Non-proliferation obligations are subject to differing interpretations. Disputes arise regarding the extent of these obligations. Compliance with non-proliferation treaties is often debated. Accusations of non-compliance can escalate international tensions. Verification mechanisms aim to ensure adherence to agreements. However, these mechanisms are not always foolproof or universally accepted. Recent events have intensified the existing tensions. This intensification has led to a significant deterioration in the relationship. The relationship has now transitioned into a state of open confrontation. Open confrontation signifies a direct and undisguised conflict. This confrontation is likely to involve explicit disagreements and potential hostility. The escalation suggests a breakdown in communication and diplomatic efforts.